Hey, what's up everyone? It's Kyle and we're back here for another video at the Oregon Music Garage. Today we should be wrapping up the exterior siding and I'm excited for that. I'm excited to share that with you guys and any tips and tricks that I have for you along the way. Now, speaking of tips and tricks and skills, today's video is sponsored by Skillshare. Now, Skillshare is an online community and they have thousands of courses. I'm talking thousands of courses that are going to help you hopefully get better at whatever it is that inspires you. For me, I'm a very tech geeky type guy. I love technology. So I've always followed MKBHD on YouTube. If you don't know who that is, man, he's the king of tech reviews, Marquise Brownlee. And that was the first course I watched on Skillshare. He goes through his process of creating his YouTube videos. He shares all of his little tips and techniques, kind of like I try to share the process of building post frame. So I can't wait to implement some of the things I learned on his video into my YouTube channel. So I don't know, maybe you're looking to kill some time, maybe you're looking to up your creativity or just get better at whatever it is that inspires you. Skillshare is a great place to go and do just that. Thankfully, they've given me 1,000 free memberships to you guys. So whoever the first 1,000 people that go to the link in my description are, you guys are the lucky ones. You get a free membership, and after that, it's only around $10 a month. Go learn something new and be inspired. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into today's video. All right, so up here at the overhead detail, so when you have an opening like this, you've got to flash underneath your vertical siding, underneath your water screen, and you're taped to your WRB. So here we've got WeatherLogic on our wall, which means we use the WeatherLogic tape to flash this piece of flashing to that. So any moisture that gets behind everything, it's gonna work its way out over top of this. So now that this is here, which we've got our trim that trims out the jamb of the door underneath here, and this is backed up tight against it, and we've got a nice hem wrapped around, so it all looks good and finished. And then we've got our trim that's gonna go on top, okay? And you'll notice we kept this up high enough so that you wouldn't see it, and we also painted it black. So when we cap it, you're gonna get this look here. And what you've got now is if water makes its way behind the battens that are gonna be installed over top of all these cracks, there's a water screen that allows the water to wick its way down and dry out behind the siding. There's a flashing that will then drip it out here. But the last detail that you gotta do is the cap of this trim. We've gotta do a piece of aluminum reverse J, and that's gonna just prevent water from sitting on top of this, this wood trim on the flat surface and just sitting there and causing havoc over the years. So it's just a protection. And then you'll see we'll actually run a bead well, we're gonna use OSI quad color matched, and we'll run that bead right here, and then our battens will die right into it. So I think it's a unique detail. It's not something that you do if you're doing a wood-sided house, but I think it's better because all those caulk joints that you rely on will eventually fail. It just is gonna happen. Caulk does not last forever. So mechanically, if water gets behind this siding or these trims, we've got the water screen allowing the water to make its way out and not do any damage long term. So that's I think the important thing, that as we get smarter as builders, you got to not think about protecting it initially with your caulk and your flashings, but down the road as things fail, to make sure that the moisture has a place to go. So I think it works out pretty good, and it looks pretty decent, I think. All right, so I used the metal brake and I bent myself some J channel. So pretty obvious, it looks like the letter J. And this is what I'm gonna use to cap behind this trim. So that's why I didn't nail this off yet. It's just got a couple nails down low, and then this is gonna slide in. But what I need to do first is I need to bend this over so that it caps the end also. Okay, now this is gonna end up hitting where that nail is, just barely. So we're just gonna go ahead and trim a little bit. Okay, there should be just a slight bevel, which there is. It's just slightly higher in the back than on the face here, and that's if water gets here, it can drip over. If it makes its way around, it's going to hit this drip and it's going to work its way off. So this is the cap that I was talking about, and I'll finish this and then we'll put a bead of caulk here. So once I've got those nails in, I can take this touch-up kit dab in all these holes. It's amazing, once you do this and you step back, the nails, they just disappear. So now that we have this piece of trim here, I've got my nail holes painted. I'm gonna take some OSI quad, this is color match black, and I'm just gonna run a bead right along here to help prevent any water. If it does make it back here, it's gonna come out on this trim down here and wick out. However, I'm not too concerned about that, and this is the detail that LP specifies, and I'm going to make sure there's just enough that goes right into these little batten cracks where the two pieces of vertical come together. The thing that a lot of people don't understand is a lot of times the caulk or the covering of the Smartside is not to protect the Smartside itself, it's actually to protect your WRB in the background underneath in those cracks. You don't want the UV rays getting in there and damaging it and then causing problems to the actual outside barrier of your building. So the Smartside itself doesn't need it to protect itself. If water does get back here, it's still going to go down this water screen that's behind the siding, and it's going to make its way all the way down underneath this trim and out the flashing, the drip that is right down here, and that is seal taped to my Weather Logic. So this is more or less just to help prevent water going back there, but we already know that water might make its way in between the batten and the siding, and that's what the water screen is for. No, there's not much above us. That was right above me. Almost went in my pouch. Almost right here.
Yeah, like, look up, like, oh no.
No, there's actually nothing left.
Oh, is it?
It's all right here over there. Yeah.
The last bit?
You got to stand on the ribs because less surface area puts more pressure in those spots.
Yeah, and then they said it was done.
It is. It's over there. Don't worry about it. Well, that kind of worked out. I was worried because this was full of snow this morning. It warmed up enough with the sunlight to just get a nice, like, almost wet, melted ice layer on the very bottom. And then that snow just slid right off of this roof. And a little bit of moisture on a metal roof actually adds a little bit of stickiness. So gives you a little bit better stick to the metal versus a dry, dusty roof. So now we should be able to get up here. We just got the Weather Logic water screen on, and we're gonna start running the rest of this vertical siding to the corner so that we can trim the top, get our corner trim on, and run all these battens.
100%.
Yeah.
My ears gonna be raining for a long time.
Well, you should have your hearing protection in, my guy.
It's like driving a car, dude. You gotta make sure your passenger seat belted in, otherwise you too get the fine.
Is that the way it is?
Yeah.
Dang it. I haven't been recording every little detail here on the build, but I've got a lot of the details that I've already done still to do. So what I'm talking about is this little gable end on the porch. We didn't really know how it was going to turn out. We didn't know what we were going to do. We talked a little bit about it with the client, whether we use horizontal or vertical siding. And I think it turned out really good, but I'll take you through one of those details so you can see how we did it. Also just finished up the battens way up top above that porch. It's looking really good. I've got a trim detail up here on the gable end of the porch for the standing seam. That'll finish that off. And just in general, man, I'm loving the color scheme on this project. I'm loving everything about it. The only thing I don't love is the amount of ice and snow still built up on the roof here to the south. So hopefully today it's supposed to warm up, maybe get some 40-degree days. It'll get it melted off and we can finish those details up on the front gable and on that hip. Okay. Let's go ahead and go down. Oh, hey, hey! My customer's truck, he just got about an avalanche on him, but we were trying to break this snow free this afternoon, and it looks like it finally went. So that is good news, because now we can get up here, get that transition trim done, seal off that roof system, and finish the siding. Wow, he just pulled in literally a minute ago. And we just cleaned all the snow up there, Greg. Literally.
Yeah, about a foot more.
20 minutes ago.
Yeah. About a foot more and his truck would have been scratched up properly. That's ice.
It's a Ford too, so it would have totaled it.
Oh, yeah.
It would have been a total.
Call the insurance.
All right, before I put my corner piece on here, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add a little bit of extra flashing here just to protect and potentially funnel water away here. You know, it's all gonna get covered up, so a couple layers of metal ain't gonna hurt nothing. I always prefer a mechanical flash over a bead of caulk all day. And that is why they say do your best, caulk the rest, because you don't want to rely on caulk, but sometimes there's just not there's not a better solution. Yeah, I like this idea. This is gonna work out quite nice. So first I'm putting a 90-degree bend around this one crack right here that's already been filled with a sealant. That's gonna help. And then I'm gonna put this other piece over top with a small bend, and that's gonna further aid in keeping the water out. Also, by doing this, it gives me some more layers of some sealant that I can put underneath here just to help make some like dams where nothing will be able to go. And remember, this is all preventative. I don't anticipate anything getting here, but just in case. I think this is about the only spot on this build where I'm like, I just don't feel amazing about it. Right there. I think it turned out pretty good. We've got everything back together. Water's all flashed properly away. If anything gets back, remember we got that water screen there underneath the vertical siding, and it goes out over top of that piece of kick out flashing. So any water that does make its way back there, let's hope not, but if it does, it has a way out, and the water screen moves the water very efficiently. So it's looking good. We're gonna move on to the next detail. All right, so one of the important things here, because this side is lower than over here, we don't got stone right here. We just thought it was kind of it would have been a messy detail having the stone end, I think. So we decided that since this dropped down, it was just a little bit of a unique situation with the concrete being higher on this side because of the retaining wall. We got to make sure that our lap siding matches up with this lap siding as it goes up. So I've measured from the top of my door down to determine where, somewhere, I'm about to mark somewhere in here, right here. This is where I need to have a piece be. So then I continue down my layout and I've got a mark right where the top of my first piece is gonna be. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna use my little torpedo, because it's a small little area, and make sure that this first piece is level. And then I know these pieces are 7 7/8. So what I'm gonna do is measure down. I've got a piece of starter, and this is gonna sit here, giving me the proper I guess, bevel to my first piece. So now we got that first piece started. It's pretty easy, and if my math is correct, even though the math never lies, I can be wrong. Now, anytime I do small little pieces like this, it is quite easy to get out of level, even if you're using the simple cider gauge. So what I like to do is go ahead and run just a couple rows. I'm gonna tack a nail, and then I'm gonna put my level back on there just to confirm that I'm still running good. And there is my mark where I should be, which is right where I'm at, which is good. And that's to make sure that I end up as the same as the siding on the other side of the door. All right, not bad, not bad. All right, you'll notice the seal tape there around that joint. That's just in case any water decides to make its way back there. I went ahead and Craig jigged this set of trims together. It holds it all nice and perfect, which gives me an opportunity to get my nails in. All right, now we can flash this off so that any water that comes down will end up going off over top of this. And you might be saying, well, maybe you should put it underneath your house wrap. I'm actually not too worried about that because I'm going to seal tape it, and I'm also going to be putting a water screen on as well. Hey, look at Greg left me a little surprise. This is just a piece of trim, and we're just using it just to cap this end so that you don't see the ugly side of this trim. All right, so now that we have the water screen on, we got our flashings all taped off and ready to go, we can start putting up the vertical siding. Now with this first piece, we're just gonna bump it up fairly close to this trim, and it's gonna get a caulk joint in the future. Now in these smaller pieces, I think it's more important that the bottom is like a nice perfect reveal on your trim. So once I get my proper gap here, I am gonna care about this gap. Like right there is where I want it to be, but I'm just gonna also confirm a nice visual consistency at the bottom too. Because in the end, these gaps are gonna get covered up. These are small pieces of Smartside. So the amount of expansion that's capable in a smaller piece is limited compared to like a big long 16-footer, which is where they gotta have that 3/16 gap. I also went ahead and cut this piece of trim on the one end with my 412. So I could go ahead and prep this. Okay. Should go up there just fine. Your end is painted. Yeah, it looks good on this side if you like it. And I just put one on each side of every 16-inch crack.
You want to finish this out with a small piece?
Inch and go an inch and 16.
Nice. Ready for some battens, and then we'll touch up all these nails with the paint as well. I don't know how much more record time I've got on the camera, but this is all going to be horizontal lap siding, and I've already got my line distinguished right where that first piece is going to go. But before I do that, I just set my window trim up here. I need to flash the top of this window, and then I can install this window trim, and then I'll flash the top of the window trim. It got colder out too. Definitely colder, a little bit breezier, so sorry if you're picking up some wind noise in the mic. I apologize, man. We're working in the middle of winter here, and we're just doing what we got to do to get this done. Oops. All right, now that my starter strip is on, before I die from these stupid hoses, when's somebody gonna make a cordless, hose-free, battery-powered or gas battery-powered siding nailer? That's what I want. Now here's what I'm gonna do. Because I can't be down there and here in the middle holding this piece up, and I don't have Greg up here, I'm gonna put this piece on. Okay, we're gonna hold it tight, all the way tight against my trim. Now I'm gonna mark an arbitrary spot on the wall, and I'm gonna mark a spot on the siding. And then all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna slide it the 3/16 gap, which, yeah, I'm using my eyeball, but I've done this a couple times now because it's really hard to do both at the same time. And then I'm just gonna come down here, find my line, boom, nice. Now I never rely on the gecko gauge exactly to put me where I wanna be height-wise, but what I do rely on is just having it hold my siding while I kind of get it in the right position. So even though the Expert Finish has this lap joint, you still have to space it properly because it's still going to have expansion. So just something to keep in mind. Well, the siding's going pretty good. We've got a couple of these joints I just randomly spaced, even though I think I have enough material to run full pieces. I thought, you know what, there's gonna be some joints, like at the bottom row, there's gonna be a couple joints when we get into these longer rows above the windows in the gable. So I think it just adds a little bit of character and consistency to have some random joints spaced in here, and I think they look good. I actually like to have this random joint. I think it adds a little bit of detail, maybe character, and overall, I love the look of the Smartside, how clean it is, how durable it feels. The worst part about Smartside, and I've said this every time I've done it, it's not so bad on the vertical siding because our trims go over the vertical, but on the lap, you have to die into your trims, which means you've got your 3/16 gap that you have to caulk. Now you're not caulking that because the Smartside requires the caulk. You're caulking it so that the UV rays of the sun don't deteriorate your WRB underneath. So that's actually the reason. Same reason that when you do a butt joint in your siding, you either have to use a pan flashing or you're supposed to caulk that joint. It's so that you don't deteriorate the WRB underneath. So a lot of people think it's because the Smartside's gonna deteriorate, but that's actually not the case. Perfect, okay. So now that we got the piece where we like it, I'm gonna go ahead, mark the outside edge of this window, Now, important thing is I'm just gonna check dimensions. I like that. I like that. Yeah, that'll work. That'll work. This one's a little bit wider than I'd want, but not bad at all. All right, guys, I'm out of time. It's the end of the day. It's the end of Friday, and I think it's the end of my memory card. I've been fighting it all day, trying to make sure I don't just run it because I'm out of time. The Smartside is about done on this project. I'm gonna roll this right into the next day, which will be Monday, when we continue the horizontal in this gable and then the front gable. And then that's it for the siding on the music garage. I can't wait to get it done. Make sure you keep following along. And even though this is the middle of the video, it doesn't take anything to hit that subscribe button or even give us a little thumbs up. It's free, doesn't cost anything, but it surely helps me out and I appreciate it. Let's clean up and we'll be right back. Oh, gecko gauges, man. They're like your best friend. Hey, yo, 80.5 tight would be a overlap on this side. 80.5 is tight, so 80 1/8. Perfect, man. Heck yeah. It's perfect, Greg. So we're almost done with this exterior detail on the music garage, but one of the things we've got left to do, other than I got a hip trim to install, the cap on top of that hip. I was just waiting for some of this snow to melt off the roof, which I think it's about there. So what I'm gonna do is install, it's just I mean, it does add some structural strength, no doubt, but this is an aesthetic that we like to add to our cedar porches. And the cool thing is I go ahead and order my 8-foot post at 10 foot. That way I can cut them down to the exact height, and then it gives me a 2-foot cutoff. So I cut these long to long, the long point to the long point at 2 foot, and it adds a nice little detail. I've already gone through, cut this whole side of porch, and then I created a little template jig so that I could mark on the face where I'm gonna go ahead and install a GRK screw. Now these screws are good for outdoor use, so make sure that if you do something like that, you use the appropriate screw. But take a good look at the porch. Okay, and then let's look at it when we're done and see how much of a difference these angles make. Well, that took me about 10 minutes to install those ankle braces, knee braces, bents, whatever you want to call them. I just call them detail and added flair, man. I think it adds a lot to the porch. Porch already looked good. Now I think that porch looks great, and we can go ahead and do it to the other porch. But before I go do that one, I'm gonna get going on these hip caps since the sun has finally melted off this roof. Here's a quick little before and after on these knee braces, and we got hip caps still to do. That's its own video. There's a lot to it, and I want to share that with you guys, so stay tuned if you want to see that. But thanks a lot, and we'll see you in the next one.